Shalom, family. Good to see everyone here. Hope you're doing well. I know many of you probably seen the stories coming out of Lakewood, New Jersey. That's down in Ocean County. I know where that is. And yes, a lot of Jewish people live in Ocean County. In fact, that's where the bulk of them are. And Lakewood is in Ocean County. Another place that a lot of them live in is Ocean City, New Jersey. In fact, you can look up some stories where they got busted for welfare fraud, and that was out of Ocean City, New Jersey. And yeah, it's not shocking for me to see that because this is how it's been for a long time. A lot of them also live in Camden County in a place called Cherry Hill. It's a lot of them there. So, but they don't live everywhere. Like in my county, it's not that many because you know why? We're too melanated for them. Too many melanated people in the county I'm in. They don't want to be here. So, anyway, it's been coming out a lot lately, and I'm sure, as we move into the near future, you're going to, hear a lot of people talking about who's the real Hebrews and who are not. And believe it or not, many of them know that they're not. They do. Why do you think they outlawed you're not allowed to get a DNA test? Because they know that test is never going to come out in their favor. It's for very obvious reasons that they got it banned. So, some of this that you're going to hear is coming directly from them, telling you, yeah, we know we're not the real thing. We know. Yeah, they know. Many of them have known for years. And that's the funny part. I remember when I first came into the truth, I would hear a lot of them say, I am a Jew. My father was one. My great grandfather, that doesn't mean you're the real thing. That means you've been converts for a long time. That's what that means. Your family lineage have been converts for a very long time. That's about all that means. So just because you can stand there and talk about everybody in your family line, that doesn't mean they weren't converts. That's not proof. So anyway, they seem to think it is because they would just stand there and listing their whole family lineage like that is full proof that, just because you walk around and call yourself something, that is true. No, that just means you've been converts in your family for a long time. Your lineage is all converts. So, y'all, let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Please give me a one if you can see my screen. Thank you.
You didn't know the Israelis are imposters? Watch this.
Most Jewish people have no Palestinian DNA in them.
Semitic denotes people who come from the Semitic region. The Semitic region is the Arab, the Holy Land, and those areas there. And the Semitic languages are Arabic and Hebrew. The people who call themselves Jews but are not, as Jesus said, they did not speak Hebrew. They spoke Yiddish. They have no blood ties to the Holy Land. That is why they've outlawed DNA testing in Israel. They actually come from Eastern Europe and Khazaria and that region out there, and they converted to Judaism many centuries ago.
Let's go inside the book, Who is Esau Edom by Charles Weisman. This is page 8. We thus find that in the years just before the time of Christ, Judea was controlled by an Edomite faction who usurped the Judite name, land, and heritage. Historically, the Edomites became known as Jews, a term derived from Judea, which was derived from the name Judah, being the royal line of Israel, though they were never of Judah or Israel. Yep, those are fakes. Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, Revelation chapter 3, verse 9. They are the synagogue of Satan.
Hey, everybody. I've had a number of people ask for sources.
Yeah, when I first came in the truth, y'all, and I was just looking at a lot of videos because, I was just sitting there. I was trying to take everything in. I wanted to know everything. I came across this one video, and it was these Ashkenazi Jews. It was two men, and they were talking. And I think it was one of the guys, I can't remember what camp, was telling them, you're not the real Jews. Do you know what he said? He said, yeah, I know. And I'm like, and then he turned and walked away. You know, so that tells me, and he was dressed, with the black hat and the black suit, like you always see them. They look like undertakers to me, but he was dressed like that. And he said, yes, I know. And he just turned around and casually walked away. So that tells me, y'all, and this is just my opinion, I believe the majority of them know. I really do. It might be some ignorant ones here and there, but I really truly believe the majority of them know the truth. But they have gotten so far in with this whole thing. How do you backtrack now? They really can't. So, yeah, they're going to continue to go on and on with this thing, but I really truly believe most of them, even the ones over in Israel, the ones that live here, wherever they live in the world, they know. The vast majority of them know. But they've been playing this game for so long. How do you back off now? Yeah, but let's go on. And you can see these are people that look like them. So they're saying, you're really Edom dressed up in disguise. And I'm not surprised that it would be Edom, since they have been one of our biggest adversaries. So, no, I would not be shocked that it is them cosplaying us. Yes. And in fact, it wouldn't make sense. It would be them, because they've been the biggest haters of us and they've been the most jealous out of all the groups. Thank you, Quantum Solace, for the super chat. So it would not shock me. Hold on one second. Lisa, I didn't know it was this deep. Their kids getting 400K throughout their childhood and teen years. I see stealing from the covenant, and our Elohim is big business to the ungodly. These people are blaspheming our father and mother. Yes, but see, that's what it's all about. If you say you are chosen, look at what comes with that: political power, money. You damn near don't have to follow no law written by man. You do whatever you want. You can push people out of communities and take over community. You know what I mean? You can get land, given to you by the Brits in the United States and call that the Holy Land. Yeah, it's for money and prestige. That's why they hang on to it. That's what I'm just telling you. It's money and prestige. You're chosen. You're chosen. So the world is nations are going to throw all kinds of money at you. And you know what else, y'all? Them folks don't work. Why do you think these men walk around in big groups all day? They got their black hats and black suits on, all huddled together, walking around all day, because they don't work nowhere. Them folks over in they don't work. They don't have jobs. The ones that are here that you're seeing a lot in Lakewood, them suckers walk around all day long doing nothing. They don't have no jobs. So, yeah, so you get to live rent free. You get a flow of money coming in all the time. Yeah, that's why they don't want to give it up and don't want to do a DNA test. Look what comes along with it. I'm just saying. Let's go. Let's go on. Let's go.
To support the claims that I made in that video where I refuted the ludicrous conspiracy theory about Jewish people today, and particularly Ashkenazi Jewish people today, not being real Jewish people. But before I get to those sources, I want to highlight one of the main claims to which I was responding, and that was this notion that Ashkenazi Jewish people are descended from Ashkenaz, one of the names mentioned in the Table of Nations in Genesis 10, and are therefore not Semitic peoples, not real Jewish people. That is a recent reinvention of what's known as the khazar hypothesis, which is something that was developed in the mid-70s. And this is the notion that Ashkenazi Jewish people are not descended from populations that were located in Palestine and in the Middle East, but are descended from Khazars, groups located in and around Turkey, and that they are only converts to Judaism and are not pure-blooded, so to speak, Jewish people. Now, converts to Judaism are Jewish people, so that doesn't really matter at all. However, this is a heinous conspiracy theory, an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that has been roundly refuted by DNA scientists, by linguists, by archaeologists, by historians, by scholars of all kinds. So the Khazar hypothesis is nonsense. And what was shared in that video to which I was responding was equally nonsense. And I'm going to share some of the sources that support that. I also want to point out that people taking you on a dictionary chase through the different ways to try to define what anti-Semitism is and who real Semites and Jewish people are committing a whole raft of fallacies about which they are not even aware. So you don't have to take that kind of stuff seriously, because dictionaries do not adjudicate meaning and are fundamentally distorting when it comes to conceptual categories anyway. So anyway, here are some sources.
I want to explain something very quickly, because it's maybe the most important and most misunderstood issues when it comes to Israel and Palestine and Judaism and Islam. Judaism is a religion. It is not an ethnicity. It is not a race. There is no such thing as Jewish blood. There is no such thing as Jewish DNA. Judaism has a lot of ethnicities within it. You have Jews that came from Eastern Europe. You have Jews that came from what is now Spain. You had Jews that came from Yemen. You had Jews that came from Iraq. You had Jews that came from Morocco. You had Indian Jews. They had different histories, different lineages, different languages, different geographic locations. Okay, the thing that unites them is the religion of Judaism, which is belief in God and belief in the Torah. That is the common factor between different groups of Jews, which begs the question, how can you be an atheist Jew? In my view, it's a contradiction. It's like an atheist Muslim. The central tenet of Judaism is belief in God. If you don't believe in God, then who do you think Moses was? Who do you think Jacob was? If there's no God, then how can they be prophets of God? What was the Torah if you don't think it came from God? But why do we often think of it as an ethnicity? Why do people think of there being a Jewish race? That is an invention that came around in the 19th century, and it was to strip God from Judaism and create a type of social cult that would aspire towards nationalism and aspire towards a state in Palestine called Israel through a process of Zionism. Okay, this was an invention. Before that, there was no idea of there being a Jewish ethnicity. It was a concoction. Why is this so important? How does this go to the heart of the issue? It's because Israel is the only state in the world which allows residency based on your belonging to a religion, right? Judaism. If you are Jewish, no matter what background, no matter what country, no matter what history, no matter what affiliations you have, you're entitled to live in Israel. No other country in the world has that. And can you think of how insane it really is as an idea? Imagine you had Brazil, that is a sort of a Catholic country. Imagine if they allowed you to live in Brazil just because you were Catholic. Okay, I could say I'm Catholic, I could go to church and say, yes, here's my certificate, I'm Catholic, I am now allowed to live in Brazil, right? That wouldn't make any sense. No country does that. Now, Israel does that. And they say being Jewish makes you eligible to live in Israel. But how do they regulate that? How do they prevent people who actually believe in God and actually believe in the Torah and say that they're Jewish from actually being allowed to live in Israel? Well, it then becomes a social question. It's like, are you in or are you out? Are you the right type of Jew for us so that you can live in Israel? Because imagine if they didn't have that social filtering. Palestinians could say, I'm Jewish, and then do they become Israeli suddenly? Could they get their land back? No, they can't, right? So the idea is to strip God from Judaism and convert it into a social cult in order to instill a system of apartheid against the Palestinian people. You have to be in this club of Judaism. Valuable for them to kind of invent an idea of a Jewish ethnicity, and they actually steal some of the Palestinian cultural symbols and heritage and try to claim it as their own, right? You talk about Israeli hummus, right? They stole hummus and try to make it a Jewish thing. And you have this idea of there being a Jewish people, a Jewish history. No, you don't. Jews actually are very, very diverse and very, very complicated. The only thing that unites them actually is belief in God and belief in the Torah. But then if you don't believe that, if you don't believe in God and you don't believe in the Torah, then you're not Jewish. You are masquerading as a Jew. You are masquerading as a Jew so you can get perhaps Israeli citizenship. But you're not actually Jewish. Actually, you've actually hijacked Judaism. You've corrupted Judaism. You've taken away God from Judaism. You've taken away what's sacred from Judaism. You've turned it into some shitty little social club, okay, which is actually anti-Semitic, which is actually the problem with Israel and problem with Zionism, is they have hijacked Judaism and converted it into a death cult, right? That is anti-Semitic. They are the continuation of what the Nazis did to Jews. The Nazis exterminated Jews and Zionists hijacked Judaism.
Jewish people are not Semitic people. I'm Rabbi Daniel Bogard, and this comment is totally right, except not at all in the way that the commenter meant. Jewish people aren't Semitic people because no one is Semitic. The whole idea of Semitism or being a Semite was an invented racist idea of Germans 200 years ago. Anti-Semitism is the word we have for Jew hatred and conspiracy theories about Jews. But the reason you'll often see it spelled these days without that dash in the word between anti and Semitism is to make clear that this is not the etymology of Semites, but it's just the word we are stuck with and we are left with when it comes to anti-Jewish hatred. But what this person meant, and what I am told constantly on this platform, is that Jews, Ashkenazi Jews like myself, are not real Jews, that we are converts to Judaism, or our ancestors were. And this is really problematic and anti-Semitic for two separate reasons. The first is that no one else gets to define Jewish tribal belonging other than Jews. The boundaries of what it means to be a Jew or to not be a Jew are different than ideas of religion or faith or race or ethnicity. We are an older and different social construct than those.
Just listen to the wording that he's using, social construct. You know, when the Most High chose us as his people, he didn't use the word and terminology, social construct, and all the stuff this man is saying, you know? And then he was like, oh, well, you can't define us. Isn't it amazing how every group feel you can't define them, but they all, including people like him, try to define us? I just find that amazing. They all try to define us. but they don't want to be defined. We define ourselves. Oh, really? Really? See, that's why they hate delineation, because that's what we're doing. We're now standing on our square. This is who we are. Nope, you don't get to name us. You don't get to give us any more of your bywords. And it is what it is. But social construct, that's another indicator that these are not the people. Nowhere in the Torah or Bible does our Heavenly Father use social construct, nor was he concerned about social construct, y'all. Quantum Solids, thank you for the super chat. I know they faking the funk because there's no such thing as Semitic, right? The word is Shemitic. They are not Shem. Yeah, I used to say that. You know what they used to come back in the day when I was first new on social media? They would come to my comment and say, the H is silent. Well, where does it say that? Where does it say that? You know, I was like, no, the H is not silent, man. No, it isn't. But that's what they used to try to say. It is the same thing. The H is silent. Yeah, well, prove that, because the H is not silent. Go somewhere and sit down. You think anything that comes out of your mouth is believable. You go do that with your people. Thank you for your support for my channel. All right, let's go on, y'all.
Ideas. But the second reason this comment is anti-Semitic and comments like it is that it's part of this attempt to say the Jews are the descendants of Khazari converts, a Turkish tribe that their leadership converted, 1,200 years ago or something to Judaism, and that Ashkenazi Jews aren't authentic Jews from the Middle East, but are in fact Khazari Jews. Beyond the ways in which this idea of indigeneity is really problematic and racist, there's also the reality that this isn't true. Repeated genetic analyses of the Ashkenazi genome shows no connection to Khazaris and that we came from the Middle East.
There will no longer be a Canaanite in the house of the Lord in that day. Revelation chapter 3, verse 9, behold, I will cause those of the synagogue of Satan, who, he's telling us who that is, who say that they are Jews and are not, but lie. They say they're Jews. They're not actually Jews. They say they're Jews. They're not Jews. They're a synagogue of Satan. Jesus warned us of these peoples in the Gospels, not just here in Revelation. In the Gospels, go to John chapter 8, verse 42. Jesus said to them, if God were your father, you would love me, for I proceeded forth and have come from God. You need to know these words from Jesus. Stop letting Jews trick you. If God was their father, they would love Jesus, period. You are of your father, the devil. He's talking to Jews. And if you understand the Pharisees, he's talking to Edomites. And if you understand what Edomites are, they're Canaanites. And now you understand this conversation. You are of your father, the devil, and you want to do the desires of your father. He was a murderer from the beginning. What was Epstein doing? What is the whole cabal doing? Lying a lot, every word, murdering, sexually abusing, worshiping Satan. Jesus is right. Surprise, Jesus is right. He who is of God hears the words of God. For this reason, you do not hear them, because you're not of God. The Talmudic Jew is not of God. And when you understand their true genetic ethnicity, you'll know why. Verse 55, and you have not come to know him. You have not come to know him. You have not come to know him, but I know him. And if I say that I do not know him, I will be a liar like you, but I do know him and keep his word. 1 John chapter 2, verse 22. Who is the liar but the one who denies that Jesus is the Christ? This is the Antichrist, the one who denies the Father and the Son. What is not clear about this language to Christians? Verse 22. Who is the liar but the one who denies that Jesus is the Christ? This is the Antichrist, the one who denies the Father and the Son. Whoever denies the Son does not have. Can they be saved? Yeah, they can be saved. They can. But you go talk to Jewish people. about Jesus and see how they react, and find out why these Canaanites don't end up saved very often.
I know that you guys don't support Zionism, or you guys don't support the Jewish state until the Messiah is here, right?
Exactly. They are not the Jewish people. They are not us, and we are not them. They are not Jewish at all. The state of Israel is a secular state, same as Japanese, but they call themselves Jewish people. They don't obey no laws. They're taking out kids from the yeshiva, sending them to draft to army to fight Hamas, which they created probably. If they would listen to the Torah, the whole war wouldn't be.
Now, he did these interviews in New Jersey, by the way. That's where all of these interviews he did with these Ashkenazis. Mama Bear Judah, thank you so much for the new channel membership. I deeply appreciate your support. You know, but we have known many of you, and as well as I know, I have known for many years since I've been in the truth about who we are, who they are. And like I said, you're going to see this coming out more and more. And I'm even seeing among white people, when I'm on TikTok, I'm starting to see more and more of their videos saying, nope, it's the people we call black people. They are the biblical Hebrews. I'm starting to see more and more of them cropping up on videos making. That's what I'm saying. A lot of the world already know. That's what I'm trying to say. A lot of them do know. Yeah, there's going to always be some that don't know, but many of them know. They know. If their forefathers enslaved us, they know who the hell they were enslaving, y'all. They know. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. Thank you so much for being here. Let me see here. Okay. Quantum Solace, thank you again for your super chat, AD3. We don't need a lesson from your ass, for you all have been perpetuating the lie since the very beginning. You all have benefited from the lie off our dime. So, nah, bruh, we don't need your input on this matter. Yeah, I mean, we know. We know. But this is showing you how many of them know. They know. Even the ones that are sitting over there in Israel, they know. So, y'all, look at how long this has gone on. They have been converted for centuries and for a very long time. And it just goes to show you how long they've been passing this thing down within their families. That's all I'm saying. So, y'all, thank you so much for being here. Zekaria, is that 3IA? Thank you so much for becoming a new channel member. Thank you. Oh, yeah, trust me, they know. Why do you think they have, there's videos out talking about the biggest threat to Israel is black youth, which makes no sense. It's not like our youth are hanging out around them, but, that's why you hear things like that. They know. They know. So, y'all, thank you again. Don't forget there is a sale on pomade. That's still on. Make sure you use the promo code pomade25 so that you can get your 25% off discount. And sometime this week, the shampoo will go on sale. So that'll be the next thing going on sale. So have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. And I will see you the next topic that should be coming up tomorrow. I have some really good ones coming up. So, y'all, we'll be talking about the Black Brits, and they deeply hate us. And I'm like, how can you hate us? You're on a whole different continent from us. But every damn body hates us. Everybody hates us. So we'll talk about that a little more tomorrow. Shalom, family.